Hey everybody, Steve Prisbrowski. Welcome to tip number 85 in the series of 101 tips to ace your promotional exam. As a reminder, my website below has a lot of great free stuff on it. Check it out if you haven't done so already. And this series is based on my latest book from Fire Engineering Books and Videos of the same name. Hopefully a valuable resource you've already checked out. If not, hopefully I'll inspire you to check it out. So tip 85. Tip 85. It's not what you say, but it's how you justify what you say. And I think I've gotten this message across in the previous tips or if you've watched other videos, but it's very common that a lot of candidates of all ranks, entry level, all the way up to fire chief, always ask that question of what are they looking for? And one of the previous tips, we did talk about what are they looking for, meaning the raters, the fire chief. But it really comes down to most oral boards, or even not just the oral board, but the assessment center itself, meaning sometimes there's an oral board, sometimes a personnel counseling role play scenario or subordinate counseling scenario, fire ground emergency simulation exercise, writing exercise, whatever the event is for the promotional process, but especially in an interview. A lot of times there's no set answers. I mean, there's sometimes maybe best answers to choose from. I mean, multiple best answers, but a good candidate, there's not usually one right answer. Now, don't get me wrong. If it's a fire ground simulation exercise where you are the first in captain, first in battalion chief, and hey, you're on scene, you got 10 minutes to talk the fire out, which is very common. Yeah, there's going to be certain things you're going to have to do. You're going to have to basically establish command. You're going to have to locate your command post, assign companies, declare strategy, offensive, defensive, get a search going, rescue occupants if applicable, get water on the fire, backup hose line, ventilation, salvage, all those other acronym mnemonic stuff that you have. I get that. But let's think about an oral board question such as, what's your greatest strength? It took me a while to realize this. When I was an entry-level firefighter candidate, I kept trying to pull my hair out of what is the best answer? Greatest strength. What are they looking for? What's the best answer? Is it dependability? Is it loyal, ethical, honest, integrity? Is it hardworking? Is it nice guy? Is it hard? Whatever. Well, it took me a while, but I realized after I've sat on the other side of the oral board and the promotional process panel that most of the time there is no right answer. Huh? Whether you say motivated as your best quality, hardworking as your best quality, dedicated, best quality, it doesn't matter. More importantly, it's how you justify what you say. That's what it comes down to, because that's what sets you apart. Because we could be interviewing, 10 people for the position of, let's say, company officer. Ask them the same question. What's your greatest strength that you can bring to the position of captain? Let's say 5 answer motivation, 2 answer honesty, the other 3 answer loyalty. They're all good answers. They're all 70% answers. Well, what sets you apart from those other 4 candidates that said the same motivated? How you personalize it, how and I've talked about this, but how you support it, how you back it up, how you justify it, how you make it true to you and tie it into the position. But let's talk about that a little more. So house on fire example, let's talk about this. Let's say you're dispatched to a scenario of a house on fire. Okay, you've got a 1-story or a 2-story house, doesn't matter. Fire in a kitchen or a bedroom, living room, it doesn't matter. Typical house. Well, there's more than one way to solve that problem. Now, I know to some people, it's like, we got to go inside on every structure fire. Yeah, that's the ideal, is to get our butts inside every structure fire. But if it's fully involved, well, we're not going to be able to get inside. If it truly is fully involved, fire out of every orifice, okay, we're going to have to hit it hard from the yard. I get it. And then once we hit it hard from the yard, darken it down, then we go into a primary search. Probably ain't going to happen because it's fully involved, but then we're going to have to do a secondary search, blah, 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 extinguish the fire, overhaul. That's, put it this way, on your promotional exam, they're probably not going to give you the fully involved building because it's too easy. They're going to give you the room and contents that you're going to have to make that decision of go, no go. But anyway, back to that, okay, 1 or 2-story house, you got what appears to be a room and contents fire that's obviously spreading, because they can't be that easy, but not that difficult either. So you got a room and contents fire that's spreading, whether it's spreading up to the 2nd floor, spreading laterally to another room, it's spreading. So now back to the expectation. Yeah, you're going to get your butt inside that building because you know you got to get water on the fire, get your aggressive primary search going, get a backup hose line, maybe a third hose line if you have any exposure issues, got to get ventilation coordinated, eventually look at salvage, look at overhaul and all that other great stuff that we have acronyms for. Thank God for Lloyd Lehman and anybody else that's created those FPOD P, or there's Colwa's Wealth, or those slicers, or Recio VS, Louvers, Revis. Yeah, we talked about those. I don't care what you use. Just put the damn fire out, manage the incident, get people out of harm's way, and solve the problem. Yeah, back to the house on fire. There's multiple ways to get this job done. You can obviously hit it hard from the yard, but if you got a room and contents, unless you're a one-person engine company and there's no rescue or no reason to go inside that building, then by all means, hit it hard from the yard if you don't have the staffing. I get it. It happens. But if you show up with a couple people, you have the staffing, and you got reasonable resources, then the expectation is you're not going to hit it hard from the yard. You're going to go in that building and try to get a search, get water on that fire, contain that fire, and solve the problem. Well, depending on the location, meaning the structure, there's usually more than one way to take a line in a building, especially if it's room and contents. You may go through the front door. Maybe you go through the side door. Maybe you go through the back door. Maybe you go through the garage door if it's open. Maybe you go through a window, even though that's a little bbit, not just hard from the yard. I'm saying get your butt in through the window with a hose line. That's usually a lot more difficult than, say, going in a door, sliding glass door, front door, back door, whatever, garage door. But my point is that there's multiple ways to go into that burning building. Now, I may, as a rater, not agree with the way you're choosing to go into that structure to attack that problem. I may choose a different method, but it's not about me. It's about you justifying it. There's many times where a candidate would say something and then you're like, or I'm like, okay, tell me more on this one. I'm not seeing where you're coming from, or I'm just having a shade of doubt of what the fuck are you talking about here? Well, and then the candidate convincingly says, no, I'm going to do this. I'm taking the hose line in through here, blah, blah, blah. Then we'll do this, we'll do that, blah, blah, blah. Sounds convincing. And they're not bullshitting. They're not checking the boxes. They're coming across as a competent, capable incident commander or company officer or chief officer. Okay, I'll buy that. I won't agree with that. I will still probably maybe do this versus that or that, but that's okay. It's about you justifying your answer. And I already touched on the second bullet point. What's your greatest strength? It's not about the strength that you mentioned. It's about how you justify it, how you tie it into the position. When I say justify it, hey, dependability is my greatest strength. Or I think motivation is the most important strength for a company officer. And why? Because your why or your justification, your personal story is probably going to be different from the other candidates. That's what sets you apart and makes you stand out. But I think ultimately be flexible and not so rigid that you can't change your mind when presented with more info. And I use the house on fire example. Typically, traditionally, we were taught to attack fires from the unburned side to the burned, meaning we would try to go on the unburned side because we didn't want to, in theory, push fire to the unburned side. Because if we went from the burned side, we might push it to the unburned side, meaning if there was a room on fire, 20% of the building, you'd probably come in through the back door. Well, okay. Let's just say maybe the front entry was on fire. So you have the front entry on fire, so that doesn't really allow easy access to the front. Well, traditional firefighting years ago would teach us go to the unburn, which means going all the way around the back, more time, more hose line, more friction loss to get water on that fire to push it out the front door. That's what I was taught 30 years ago. Well, now with all the UL and the NIST studies that have come out, we learned through the science, we don't push fire. We actually can extinguish it if we have enough GPM. So that example of maybe you got the front door on fire where you traditionally would have gone from the back unburned to the burn. No, now we're taught you got fire in the front door. You're not going to walk through fire, knock the shit out of it with your hose line with enough gallons per minute to darken that fire down. You ain't going to push it. More than likely, all you're going to do is hopefully knock it down, if not extinguish it. Then you can go in and get what you got to have done. It's a coordinated effort. You may have also have people go in the back, just maybe not spraying water, but maybe getting the search done because search is important too. But back to this point, you got to be flexible and not so rigid, meaning if that oral board or that rater comes back and says, okay, so you're going to do this, When now, let's say you choose to go through the front door. You're going to go through that front door to attack that kitchen fire that's to the right or the left of the front door. But a good trained firefighter, before they go into any structure, especially when they think it's on fire, they're going to go pull ceiling. And when you pull ceiling, because you go through that front door, and before you start going in, you pull ceiling, and you see fire all above you in the truss roof, because it's a lightweight truss roof, like most new construction is. Well, even though you think you have a small contained kitchen fire, unbeknownst to you, that kitchen fire, before your butt got there on engine one, has already gotten into the attic space. And guess what? You've got fire impinging that lightweight truss roof, and that's been burning pretty heavily. And we all know, if you look at the studies, go to YouTube, once that lightweight truss roof or that flooring of lightweight truss material is on fire, you got about 5 or less minutes before that shit collapses. So knowing that, again, you might not realize that when you went in, but that nice rater is telling you, so you would you maybe consider a different tactic if you actually checked the ceiling and you saw that lightweight truss roof was already on fire, meaning they've thrown you a bone because they like what you said so far, and they're maybe trying to give you a life raft because you're not seeing it. It happens if they like you. Oh, a good candidate would say, oh, I think I got time. I'm going to go and knock the shit out of this fire, get a search done, and I think we're ahead of the curve. Okay, that's a little risky versus, oh, thank you for the additional information. We pulled the ceiling. We noticed that we got fire above. That changes the game, because I know that roofing material or that roofing structure is going to collapse ASAP. So I want to be able to see if I can get water on that fire, but also see if we can get water into that, the attic area, make sure everybody is out of the building as safely as we can. And that's our main goal still, but we also got to be now very careful about having that whole roof fall down on us, blah, blah. Flexibility is important. Rigidity is important too, but you also got to be flexible when you're given more information, or you actually maybe have an epiphany of, oh shit, might not be the best thing to do. Hey, what it comes down to is anybody can answer a question, but what makes a candidate stand out is how they justify and support their opinion or their stance. That's really what it comes down to on any part of and that's life in general. I remember I had a battalion chief one time. He was always just argumentative. And one time he was always in your face, and I thought he didn't like me. And it took me a while to have the courage, but finally he's like, Priz, why are you doing that? Or why did you choose that? And I'm like, God damn it. What's he always arguing up my ass for? And I finally said, Chief, I chose that because of this, 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 and this. Well, good job, Priz. I wouldn't have exactly done it that way, but sounds good, sounds reasonable. Good for you for making a good decision. Problem was solved. I'm like, holy shit. He never questioned me again. Whether he's intimidating, pain in the ass, he was actually, I think, trying to test me to make sure that I was a good, competent officer and challenging me to be the best that I can be. He wasn't trying to be an asshole. Well, I know it's easy to think that way, but he was forcing me to go through it, but also it built my confidence that, no, Chief, this is why I did that. And if I didn't do it correctly, let me learn from my mistakes. But anyway, there are many right ways to do things or answer a question, but the best scores come from the confident, not cocky or arrogant candidates who can accurately paint a picture for the raters. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Think about it. So don't be an asshole. Don't scream, don't yell, but be confident. So anyway, as always, thank you for the gift of your time. Until the next episode, we'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.